I'm your host, Christopher Balkaran. Folks, thanks so much for joining me for another live. I'm here in Toronto, coming to you live, talking about digital ID with the World Economic Forum, which I will get into in all the detail today. If you haven't watched my video that I released today, check that out on the digital ID. Folks, a couple special announcements from me. You'll see in the description box below. Definitely, please subscribe to my newsletter. It's growing, and clearly, you're liking what I'm putting out there. It's a very short read. I know newsletters can be very. Sometimes a lot of them can be very lengthy. My old one that I did on Substack, those are like essays that I put out, and I realized that's way too long. So the newsletter that you see now is very short. You can read it in just a few minutes. So I urge you all to check that out. The second thing, folks, I just released my first digital product ever for sale on Gumroad. So it's called the Clarity Method. And the Clarity Method to me means so many things, but really it's about approaching like really challenging topics with a system, a system in place. And the reason I decided to create the Clarity Method is because so often I was confronted with these challenging topics, and the way in which they were presented were so inflammatory that I couldn't even pause to gather my thoughts because people on both sides had already made their minds up, and they were trying to convince me of their opinion. And on top of that, so that's one scenario. Another scenario is you turn on the news and, something happens in the news, and it's like the news anchors have made up your mind for you. They're basically telling you the angle, the perspective, the what's wrong with other perspectives. They've done all the hard work of thinking, so you don't have to do that. And I found that to be very challenging because I'm like, they're not, they're just news people. They're not like, necessarily independent. And so, anyways, all that to say, I created the Clarity Method with that in mind. It's literally a 7-step process helping people understand how to unpack these really complicated issues. And then I also included some worksheets as well. And I'm gonna keep building on this course. Maybe I'll make it into like a video series as well. So if you haven't already, check that out. The link is in the description as well. I would really appreciate it. Every single subscription and comment and like and share all goes back to helping me support and build the channel. I truly do believe, folks, that this is a movement. It's not about me anymore. It's about the movement towards more open and honest discourse. And I'll tell you that, and I don't even know if I can speak about this publicly, but a lot of people want to partner, engage, and there's so much opportunity. And I'll tell you, every day I run home from work and I run to like do work on this because it gives me such great joy and pleasure. So I hope that's coming through in the content that I'm putting out. So I hope you're enjoying that. I just wrapped up my series on temporary foreign workers, and I'm gonna keep doing more on it. But I know so many of you have asked me about the World Economic Forum, and I thought, why not start on something really big, which is digital ID. So I'll pause there. Again, if you have any comments, questions, throw it in the chat, folks. I'm doing all of this on YouTube's. They now have like a web version for live, so I don't have to use like software and all that, which is great. It makes life easier for streaming. So definitely, if you're liking my content, hit that like button, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family. This is the place where we're having open and honest conversations. Again, so important. You'll see that I'm drinking out of a Niagara Falls. Maybe this can focus. There we go. A Niagara Falls mug. I don't know if anyone's been to Niagara Falls recently. Niagara Falls is a great place. It's a magical place. But the city just kind of revamped its whole marketing. So let me see if I can autofocus this for a second. I just want to show you this mug. If it autofocuses, maybe. Oh, so yeah, it's like Welcome to Niagara Parks, and it's got this kind of like funky, 3D, 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 3D picture of Niagara Falls. I love it. It's very like, I don't know. I like it. I like it. It's a frosted mug, Niagara Falls, Canada. So they didn't sponsor this video, but strongly suggest you check out Niagara Falls. It's great. Okay, so we're here to talk about digital ID, and so many of you have asked me to cover this topic. Now, I want to begin by saying one small thing, and that is when it comes to the World Economic Forum, the way in which people tell me to cover this is from a place of like, something's going on. There's a government global plan, and Canada is involved in this global plan, and that is the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum is this unelected body. They set the rules and they walk them out, and governments fall in line. And I know that's very conspiratorial and that's very like tinfoil hat. And I don't mean to dismiss what people are saying. But I think the more appropriate approach is to look at the policies that the World Economic Forum is putting forward and seeing where there's alignment with Canada, or not only alignment, where Canada has adopted full stop the World Economic Forum's policies, um, where governments have openly recognized the impact of the World Economic Forum's policy recommendations and have gone forward with it, um, all without telling the Canadian people a little bit more about what they're doing. Now, I will kind of say, and I want to throw this out there, that perhaps governments are thinking about this. I've seen this countless times with Canada. When it comes to big topics, we typically tend to follow the crowd. So, it's not always the case, but it is very much the case. Europe was very adamant about Russia, Ukraine. Canada followed suit. Canada is one of the top funders of Ukraine right now, surpassing some European nations who are directly impacted by Russia and Ukraine, or can be directly impacted. Canada's not. We're an ocean away. And yet we're one of the top funders for Ukraine. Yeah, we have a large diaspora here of Ukrainians, but still we kind of followed the pack on the EU on that. And that's not unlike the past. We have followed other countries in the past. And so when it comes to the World Economic Forum, I was trying to think about this. This forum puts forward policy objectives and ideas, and is it that Canadians aren't putting forward policy objectives and ideas? Is it that we're not being creative as a civil society about the way forward for Canada that may be very distinct from the rest of the world, forcing our government to look to these like international bodies? I don't want to believe that, but I think that's what gives me so much energy, because here's the place on YouTube where we can kind of put forward ideas that government can consider and can continue to, want to embrace. And so when it comes to digital ID, this was all born from the World Economic Forum. And the World Economic Forum is a non governmental organization. I'm not sure if it's nonprofit. It's definitely a non governmental organization that invites politicians, world leaders, business leaders, academics, CEOs all together, gives them a platform, and they put together research. And they really try to get more people engaged in their research. And this research then turns into policy recommendations. And it's not unlike other non governmental organizations. I think where a lot of people have concerns are the level of power that the World Economic Forum has. They have considerable power. And you might be asking why and how. And I feel like there's not enough information for me to dispel that in as much detail as I should be. But that's for a later video because I feel like I'd love to explore the origins of the WEF together with you. So if that's something you want to see, drop a comment in the comments below. Let me know what you think. I think that would be a wonderful topic to explore. Okay, so let's talk digital ID because digital ID is just like really, really interesting. Okay, so about 10 years ago, this idea of a digital identification system was floated by the World Economic Forum, and I think others were floating it around this time as well. But it was that we were hmm, so many things were suddenly becoming very digitized 10 to 15 years ago. And our phones played such a big role in that kind of transformation. By the way, I don't know if anyone can see this. Um, I should show you my home screen. I just flashed it there for a second. I don't know if you can see that. I don't think you can. There you go. I don't know if anyone knows that scene, um, but that is a scene out of the Bhagavad Gita, um, and it's a deep meaning. I'll get into that one day, but I encourage everyone just to there's great YouTube videos on the Bhagavad Gita. Um, so it's such powerful stuff. That's the main scene from the Bhagavad Gita, um, with Krishna and Arjuna. Anyways, check that out. So 10 to 15 years ago, a lot of digitization was happening. And we were on the cusp of a massive digital revolution if we weren't already. And so I don't know how many of you know this, but like the explosion of Amazon, Uber, Skip the Dishes, Cash App, it all really happened 10 to 15 years ago. Uh, like we're talking hundreds of thousands, millions of jobs were created from that whole like sphere of food and good service delivery on demand really started about 2014, 2013, around that time. Interestingly enough, around this time, our phones, all of our phones, our smartphones got like the leap was so dramatic year over year up to 2014, 2015, where it now could power things like an Uber, Uber Eats, Amazon simultaneously. You could order Amazon while ordering Uber Eats. Like the payment methods, everything was just really synchronized with your Apple ID and Face ID, which was starting to come up. I think they were still using the fingerprint, but Face ID was not far behind. And but Apple ID was like your one window to sign in. And so there was a video I was watching recently where someone said, "You know why Apple products work so well? It's because the user interface is seamless, but the back end, there's like millions of calculations happening all the time. Like they're signing you in and out of accounts. Like prior to 2013, 2014, many phones would require like multiple sign-in requests and not faces, but like passwords and all that. And it got to a point where it was extremely cumbersome. And so one thing Apple did is it created Apple ID and it streamlined all of that. You saved everything on the keychain. It was this whole thing. It still is. But that was like so essential to the boom of Amazon, Uber, Uber Eats, and everything else that came with it about 10 to 15 years ago. And making that like super, super easy for the end user to do. Um, and then, of course, with this were a ton of jobs. Like between 2013 to 2022 in Canada, 3 million jobs were created, most of that coming from the gig economy. I mean, it is wild how many jobs were created. And so you think about what happened in Canada, you multiply that by the G7, like Amazon and Uber and all these countries, all these companies have substantial political power because of the advances they did in a very short period of time and the jobs they created as a result. Remember, the gig economy was basically created 15 years ago. Um, okay, so that's all happening. And that really spurred or spawned like more digitization of everyday services. So, like electronic medical records, EMRs, I think that's the official term, um, was a big push, and the government, like here in Canada, funded it like to the nth degree. And so suddenly your medical records weren't in these massive filing cabinets anymore, they were electronic. And they could be accessed by your specialists, by your general physician. They could be sent, back in the day, I don't know if people remember this, but back in the day, your general physician would have what they need to know before your meeting. Well, now with EMRs, like any specialist can access it, or most specialists can access that. Um, and it's pretty wild, like how seamless it all is, right? Okay, so from a purely convenience lens, Apple's digital ID or your phone's digital ID, your username and profile, like that whole profile portfolio of you makes sense, right? Like you don't want to be digging in your pocket for your password, not your pocket, but like you don't want to forget your password to Uber or to Amazon or to, whatever else you use on your phone to buy things. You don't want to, chances are you're going to lose your password, or you're going to use the same password like in 5 or 6 different places, and that's like a security hazard and all that. So from a purely secure convenience factor, a digital ID makes so much sense, right? Like if you're truly connected in today's day and age, you want a digital ID, right? You want to open your phone, Face ID, tap, buy whatever, and be done with it. Not worry about passwords and you know re-entering the password again and again. Like you don't want any of that headache. And you know, if I extend this convenience idea to going to my doctor and say I could tap my phone and there's my information. Amazing. Again, from a strictly like convenience lens. We're not talking privacy just yet, but strictly convenience. You tap your phone, you see your doctor. Amazing. Like, or say you have a new doctor, they don't know anything about you. You tap your phone, all your information's there is amazing. You go to the airport, you tap your phone, say they get rid of passports. Amazing. You don't have to like, oh man, I forgot my passport. I can't travel. All these things, right? Like true from a strictly convenience lens, this makes sense. It makes total sense. And the World Economic Forum talks explicitly about the convenience factor of a digital ID in many of its documents to say, like, hey, this is just going to help us do so many things. They even extend it to like electricity usage and building like these smart cities where they can monitor your electricity usage and then like determine when the peak hours are. It's a whole thing. Um, that all relies on you setting up an ID system and you giving consent to them using your information and habits. And again, I think for the majority of you, you'd be like, okay, well, who cares if they want to know that I went to the Jays game or that I bought something from, I went to go to my hair barber or I went to get a massage or whatever. I just came from a massage. It's totally worth it. Did not use my phone for that. But anyways, all that to say, like, I think that there's a lot of like uh benefits from a convenience factor to having this one digital ID on your phone. Okay, so those are the benefits. There's substantial issues with what I've just described. And let me just get into that in 1 second. But before I do, folks, thank you for those who have liked and shared the live. I really appreciate that. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. My name is Christopher. I'm covering the biggest topics of our world with, again, truly, truly a genuinely curious lens. So if this applies to you, if this is what you want to see, check out my YouTube channel. I got tons of stuff there, all types of stuff, but also subscribe to my newsletter. It's totally free. It's in the link below. Subscribe there. And also, if you're so willing, check out my first digital product I've ever released ever called the Clarity Method. It's in the link below. It is totally worth every dollar. And always, every subscription, every like, every share goes back into me supporting this channel. And we're creating a movement here. Just a few months ago, I was at like 400 or 500 subscribers. I'm almost double that. You're clearly liking this content, and I post almost daily. So check it out. Link below for how you can get in touch. Subscribe, like, share. I would sincerely appreciate all of your support as I continue on this path to ask the tough questions. Okay. And many of you, as I said before, have asked me about the World Economic Forum and its connection with Canada. And I believe strongly that there is a connection, which we'll get into right now. So I've described to you the digital ID and the convenience factor and how beneficial it is from truly convenience. I'm sure many of you know that it's very convenient in your daily lives. Here's some of the drawbacks. I don't know about you, but you see the terms and conditions every time you add more services to your digital ID. You know, you add your banking information, there's a terms and service. You add PayPal or payment methods, there's terms and services. There's terms and services on a lot of things for digital ID, your Apple digital ID. So, with all of this convenience comes real challenges. Okay, so the first thing is I mentioned before, if you go to your family doctor in the future, it may be that the governments phase out health cards and they put them on your phone, and you just tap at a walk in clinic and up pops your information. This all hinges on all of us buying into a digital ID. You know, not all of us are, first of all, tech savvy. Not all of us own a smartphone, surprisingly. I think that like 10 to 15% of the population of Canada does not have a smartphone, and even, like, there's some, like, millennials and Gen Xers who are, like, saying no to, like, smartphones and getting flip phones. So for those people, tapping everywhere suddenly becomes an issue because they're not sharing their information, which is their right. You know, you don't have to buy a smartphone in Canada. It makes a lot of things easier, but you don't have to buy it. And so when we start thinking about healthcare in particular, um, you know, if you don't have a smartphone, does that limit your family healthcare options? Like, is that I know that sounds a bit tinfoil hat-ish, but does that limit your ability to receive healthcare as a result with digital ID? Um, because we're not protecting a person's right to not purchase a smartphone. And we know for a fact that there have been data breaches and data leaks, you know, people losing their entire information, um, and a lot of scam artists and everything else like popping up. And so, how does a digital ID protect against that, or does it? I don't think it does, but perhaps there are safeguards in place. Um, so the idea of a data breach is no longer like your email and your password to your email. It's like your login information to a medical site or a credit card company or your banking information or like the most private things about you are now all on a cloud or all saved in a keychain somewhere that can be potentially leaked to the public or to hackers who can create digital IDs and, you know, fake people as well. Like it's very possible in this new world. What safeguards are there to protect against that? I think that's a real issue, and I don't think that enough people are really taking that seriously. So data breaches are huge. Like I said before, your right to not buy a smartphone may limit you from medical choices or availability of medical services potentially. Um, Here's something else to think about. I know I mentioned this on my video, but like mobility. So, you know, mobility, did you know that the Section 6 of the Charter guarantees your mobility, protects your mobility to move in between provinces and to enter and leave Canada? And, you know, I did not know that. Like, I just thought, okay, well, that's just normal, but it's actually a protected right in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I'd love to know the history of that. I assume there's some history to that, but with a digital ID, say you don't have a physical passport and your phone is down or not working and you don't have a smartphone. Do you not Can you not leave the country now? Like I was thinking about this actually when I traveled recently. I traveled and it was pretty seamless with the passport. You just scan and you go, and the terminals in some countries are so good now where like the scanning devices, the personal scanners, like you don't have to like take off your belt and shoes and all that. But it just got me thinking. It's like, wow, the technology has really advanced quite dramatically. Um, and like if you don't have your phone, I mean, sure, you could walk with your physical passport, no question. But if the government says, yeah, we're getting rid of physical passports completely, you know, this is going to be very challenging, not only for people without smartphones, but, the elderly have smartphones and they often need help with their smartphones. And so, like, who's gonna be helping them with that? I know it sounds a bit out there, but again, back to the question of like data breaches and data leaks, that's another concern when it comes to travel documents being digitized. But also, more importantly, if we all switch to like a digital ID system and we have uh it's a digital ID system, then there's a real possibility that there will be data breaches and data leaks, but also the government's not making sure that your mobility rights are actually guaranteed. And that's actually interesting because could you not be able to travel if you don't have your phone with you, as an example? And so it got me thinking about this. And it's like the WEF, for some reason, is pushing all of us to use these and to use these like religiously. I think obviously they know that we're all on our phones all the time, and I say this as like, people are messaging, et cetera, but, like, it just got me thinking for a second, like, how interesting the timing of all this is, right? Like, the timing is wild. 15 years ago, Uber, Amazon, Uber Eats burst onto the scene, Lyft, the whole thing. Food delivery, Amazon. Those apps demanded more processing power from the smartphones that were out at the time. And so, interestingly enough, the power of smartphones from say 2010 to 2015, like dramatic leap in processing power capabilities, etc. Today, I feel like smartphones, the only benefits you're getting from the latest phone are better cameras, um, and maybe better RAM and RAM, like the fastness of RAM usage. But generally speaking, I don't think you need the best processor to open Uber Eats and Amazon today. Um, so that said, Amazon, Uber Eats, they all burst on the scene. Smartphones tech gets so much better than what it is, right? Like what it was just a few years earlier. And all of this happens at a time when the World Economic Forum is pushing this digital ID idea. And so, tinfoil hat on, it's like, hang on, all of these things are kind of convalescing, and digital ID suddenly becomes like feasible and possible because in your pocket, you have a supercomputer that can keep your whole digital ID very cleanly, and you don't need like some big massive processor to do it. Um, so it's interesting to see that like these technologies map out at the same time the apps are coming out that demand that processing speed. Like, it's very odd to me that this is all happening together. Um, and that the World Economic Forum, interestingly enough, is putting out research at this time in 2014, 15, 16 about digital ID. So how interesting is that? It's like everything is kind of lining up with each other. So I'm going to leave it there on a cliffhanger because my next video, I'm going to talk specifically about what Canada is doing when it comes to the World Economic Forum and digital ID. Very interesting. There's a couple programs. Canada was even a pilot for one of the digital ID programs, which we'll get into in the next live. So if you haven't already, like, subscribe to my blog below, openminds.beehive.com. And folks, again, just today, I released my first digital product called the Clarity Method. Check it out. It is totally worth it. I'll leave links. Actually, the link is below, so check that out too. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube. I post here like daily almost. And if you're concerned about the world and everything that's happening in it, this is the place for you. More to come on digital ID, World Economic Forum, and the linkage with Canada. I'll definitely catch you in the next one, everyone. Go Jays, go. Tonight is game 7. Fingers crossed we're gonna clinch the World Series, and I have a feeling. Go Jays, go, everyone. We'll take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have a good night, everyone.